Good afternoon. Today is still March 5th, and we are in the voting session of the Ways and Means Committee hearing. Where did Delegate Hartman go? Oh, he's a bill. Okay, and so does Delegate Wells. So until they return, and same with Delegate Miller. Okay, until they return, they are excused from voting. These are all in bill hearings. Oh, well, you're back. So now you don't need to be excused. Okay, we will start with House Bill 14, and there are amendments. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 14, Election Law Revisions. This bill alters the information on felony convictions that the courts are required to report to the State Board of Elections. That's for the purposes of assessing who is ineligible to vote. It also requires public buildings to be available for use as early voting centers and allows chairs of party central committees to seek re-election. There are amendments to this bill. The amendments clarify the reports of felony convictions that the courts are required to provide to the State Board of Elections so that it's more specific and SBE gets what they need. It also establishes an appeals process for a public official to contest the availability of a public building for use as an early voting center. Madam Chair, I move the subcommittee amendments.
Is there any discussion on the amendments? Delegate Buckle.
I don't know that it's really on the amendments. It might be on the bill, but it might be on the amendments. My notes reflected there was some concern. The clerks of the Circuit Courts Association and others had some concerns about their technical ability to interface with SBE, you know, that they didn't have a readily available database that said, hey, here are all the people that have been convicted of a certain crime that may affect SBE eligibilities. Or when their sentence has been commuted or has been resolved so that they can notify SBE they're now eligible to vote. Were any of those concerns, to your recollection, brought up in the subcommittee by those groups or resolved by any of the amendments, or is that still probably extant?
Thanks for the question. That is on the amendment, so I appreciate it. It was resolved. So one of the amendments is further clarifying the type of information that SBE needs. So I'm looking at Stan because my understanding is that the administrator and the courts worked it out. So when it came to subcommittee, the amendment reflected what was worked out.
Okay, so the clerk of the Circuit Courts Association and those folks feel that the bill is written now as something they can comply with without costs or dramatically altering the way they do their operations. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion on the bill is amended.
Move favorable.
Okay, we're going to do a roll call on House Bill 14. Okay, so all those in favor of House Bill 14 as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, House Bill 14 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 200, and there are amendments. Delegate Eversole.
Thank you, Madam. Carried to appropriations on this bill as amended. The bill alters the scope and services provided by community schools, expanding wraparound services and community school leadership teams. The bill requires the director of community schools with the State Department to create a common needs assessment tool to be used by community school coordinators to complete needs assessments of their schools, and an annual evaluation form to be used by community school coordinators to evaluate their schools. The bill requires that community schools implementation plan be reviewed at least once every 3 years and updated when appropriate. Finally, the bill requires community schools to undergo an annual evaluation that examines whether wraparound services are meeting students' needs and how the school is performing. There are amendments, and the amendments strike the provisions for when certain funds can be made or used by a county board on a community school's behalf. And they clarify the role of the State Department in reviewing needs assessments and add provisions relating to the annual evaluation of a community school. I move the amendment.
Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the amendments passed. Motion on the bill is amended.
Move favorable.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? House Bill 200 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 243, and there are amendments. Delegate Feldmark. Nope, Delegate Atar, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill reforms the tax sale process by requiring that certain properties be withheld from sale, limiting the rate of interest charged to property owners to redeem property sold at tax sale, increasing the period of time after a tax sale before foreclosure can begin for owner-occupied property, requiring the tax sale ombudsman to be notified when foreclosure begins for an owner-occupied property, authorizing counties and municipalities to use an expedited process to foreclose on vacant and abandoned properties, and restricting the sale of property to enforce a lien for unpaid charges for water and sewer service. There are amendments, and the amendments remove the requirement to withhold non-owner occupied property from sale when the taxes are less than $250, remove the cap on redemption interest for non-owner occupied property, change the cap on redemption interest for owner occupied property from 6 to 10%, deletes a requirement that local governments offer installment payment plans to redeem owner-occupied property sold at tax sale, and changes a restriction on the sale of property for unpaid charges for water and sewer service to apply to owner-occupied property that rather than any residential property. I move the amendments.
Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, motion on the bill is amended. Delegate Long,
Correctly, if I'm not mistaken, were you saying that if it's non-owner occupied property, the limited amount of water charge could be $250, and then it could be they could sell it on?
So it removes the requirement to withhold it from non-owner occupied from the sale when the taxes are less than $250. And the reason why we did that was there's no need to provide the protection to non-owner occupied property when current law already gives local governments options to withhold any property with taxes less than $250. So because of current law, there's no need for this.
Well, the question I have is a lot of time tenants are obligated to pay the water bills. Sometimes, my concerns are with that. If a property is sold at tax sale, because the tenant didn't pay the water bill. Anyway, thank you.
So I can just respond for the tenant part. If the tenant, most of the time they are required to pay for it. If they don't pay, they can be evicted. But if they're not paying and the landlord's not paying, yes, at some point it can go up for sale.
Okay, thank you.
any other questions on the amendment? Delegate Henson.
Mayor, I just want to make sure I understand the provision regarding Carroll County. Is it raising the redemption rate for that county?
Carroll County?
We are on House Bill.
I think
know what?
Mr. Ward can address that.
Stan.
On
Yeah.
page
Hit your
5.
button.
Yeah, with the amendments basically with the amendments, the rate of redemption in Carroll County isn't changed.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion on the bill is amended. Any discussion on the bill is amended? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 243 as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Delegate Long is opposed. House Bill 243 passes favorably as amended. And Delegate Miller is excused. Good luck on your bill. Yes. That makes it unanimous. Thank you for putting it over the edge. Okay. House Bill 396 is a local bill. Delegate Attar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 396 enables Prince George's County to use the revenue from the local sales and use tax on energy and fuel to meet state funding requirements for the local school system. Under current law, the revenue from the energy and fuel tax must be spent for education purposes in addition to the amount required by state law. I move the bill.
Any discussion on House Bill 396? Delegate Henson.
Yes, on the bill. I was looking at the fiscal note and I want to make sure I understand the impact of it. It looks like the maintenance of effort is increasing. And so instead of these funds being dedicated to a special fund, they want to be able to apply them to the maintenance of effort. But the way the fiscal note's written, it looks like there's a $16 million decrease to the budget for Prince George's County schools. I just want to understand it.
Stan was actually just explaining this to me right beforehand. Stan, do you mind jumping in to answer her question? Because I still don't.
Sure. Sure. So basically, right now, the revenue attributable to these taxes has to be spent on education in addition to what's required by state law. This would allow them to dedicate the revenue from these taxes to meet their state law funding requirements. So they could spend less on education than they are today. However, the amount that has been required by state law has been increasing significantly in accordance with the blueprint and the state requirements.
Thank you for the clarity. Thanks, Madam Chair.
I will point out on this bill and the next bill, the delegation and the county executive have been pressed to get it on this vote list, like today. So, yes. Well, we always don't do local control. If it's, you know, we're not gonna get into that right now, but like if you want to change something that's never been done in the state, then not necessarily. Okay, so we're gonna do a roll call on this one. Yes,
No.
Just the way it's for.
It's just
Just how-
allowing them to use it a different way.
so if I'm just restating what Stan the man said, so correct me if I'm wrong, it is allowing them to put more money towards their maintenance of effort,
Yes.
because that's increasing. So this is helping them kind of pay for that.
Yes. Instead of in addition to maintenance of effort, it's now included in it. Exactly.
Correct. Okay, we're gonna do a roll call on this one. House Bill 396 is for a favorable, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol.
Yeah.
Delegate Patterson.
Yeah.
Delegate Buckle.
No.
Delegate Wells. Delegate Hornberger. Delegate Fair. Delegate Long. Delegate Young. Delegate Miller is excused. Delegate Henson. Delegate Roberts. Delegate Grossman. Delegate Wims. Delegate Vogel. Delegate Wu. Delegate Hartman. Delegate Miracle North. Delegate Griffith. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quick. So this is a bill I wouldn't necessarily support for my county, but because it's a delegation bill and you know, in this committee especially, whenever I've needed support for delegation bills, this committee has supported me. So I will always support delegation bills for other reasons. So thank you.
Delegate Attar. Delegate Plavkovich Carr. Delegate Feldmark.
Yes.
House Bill 396 passes as favorable. House Bill 398, and there are amendments. Delegate Attar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is pretty similar to the previous bill, but this bill authorizes Prince George's County to use the revenue from the local sales and use tax on telecommunication services to meet state funding requirements for the local school system. Under current law, once again, revenue from the telecommunications tax must be spent for education purposes in addition to the amount required by state law. The amendments authorize the county to impose an excise tax on telecommunication services in addition to or instead of the current sales tax on telecommunication service. If an excise tax is imposed, the rate is limited to $3.50 monthly for each line. Move the amendments.
Okay, any discussion on the amendments? Delegate Buckle.
I think Delegate Tar, the amendment you said also enables them to impose an additional tax beyond what they currently tax. So the last bill was just, we can shift on the fiscal ledger where we're using the monies. This bill, they can shift on the fiscal ledger in the same way, plus they can impose an additional tax on these particular services and use those monies to again, pay for their maintenance of effort requirement.
That is correct. Yes, it's limited to $3.50 monthly per line.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Delegate Miracle North.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to clarify, sorry, sounds a lot louder than I'm used to hearing. A lot louder. All right. The calls that are being taxed, are there calls originating and ending in Prince George's County? Is that my understanding?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
And are we including, when we say telecommunications, are we including like the use of iPads and things like that where you can call people? Is that taxed as well, or is that not considered?
Honestly, I don't think that.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call. Well, we need to move the amendment, sorry. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Is there a sec? Okay. Any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, now we will do a roll call on the favorable as amended. Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol?
Yes.
Delegate Patterson? Delegate Buckle? Delegate Wells? Delegate Hornberger? Delegate Fair? Delegate Long? Delegate Young? Delegate Miller is excused. Delegate Henson? Delegate Roberts? Delegate Grossman? Delegate Wims? Delegate Vogel? Delegate Wu? Delegate Hartman? Delegate Mirku North? Delegate Griffith? Delegate Attar? Delegate Plavkovich Carr? Delegate Feldmark? House Bill 398 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 627, and there are amendments. Delegate Wilkins. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a very good bill with a great sponsor. House Bill 627, Election Law Automatic Voter Registration, State Correctional Facilities. This bill requires our state correctional facilities to implement automatic voter registration for individuals when they're released from incarceration. As a reminder, we do already provide and require automatic voter registration at the MVA and also as part of the Health Benefits Exchange. This just adds the Department of Corrections facilities upon release of individuals. There is an amendment, it is technical.
You want to move the amendment?
Move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any discussion on the technical amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion on the bill is amended.
Move favorable as.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, we're gonna do a roll call on the favorable as amended. Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
Delegate Ebersol? Delegate Patterson? Delegate Buckle? Delegate Wells? Delegate Hornberger? Delegate Fair? Delegate Long? Delegate Young? Okay, I didn't hear you. Delegate Miller is still excused. Delegate Henson? Delegate Roberts? Delegate Grossman? Delegate Wims? Delegate Vogel? Delegate Wu? Delegate Hartman? Delegate Mirku North? Delegate Griffith? Delegate Attar? Delegate Plavkovich Carr? Delegate Feldmark? House Bill 627 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 641, and there are amendments. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. House Bill 641, Election Law Curbside Voting. This bill establishes a curbside voting location at one location in each county during early voting and on Election Day. There are several amendments. The amendments require the state board and the local boards to emphasize in communications with the public that curbside voting is primarily an accommodation for voters with disabilities and the elderly. Requires a local board to establish an electioneering boundary around the curbside voting location and to avoid expanding the electioneering boundary around an existing polling place to accommodate curbside voting to the extent practicable. It also clarifies if a voter chooses to vote at curbside voting using a ballot marking device, the device must be brought outside to the voter. And I want to thank the subcommittee for their very strong bipartisan work in this work product. I move the subcommittee amendments.
Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, motion on the bill is amended.
Move favorable as amended.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 641 as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? House Bill 641 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 700, and there are amendments. Madam Vice Chair.
Election Law Subcommittee is working hard, Madam Chair. House Bill 700, Election Law, Election Judges Revisions. This bill requires counties to provide administrative leave for employees who serve as election judges. Requires election judge form to be standardized and minimized. It also allows public school students to receive election judge compensation. That is already existing compensation for election judges and their service learning credit hours. It also clarifies the eligibility for the $100 bonus for returning election judges. There is an amendment to this bill. It clarifies that a returning election judge means a judge who has served in the immediately preceding presidential or gubernatorial election. I move the subcommittee amendment.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion on the bill is amended.
Favorable as amended.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 700 as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? House Bill 700 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 730, and there are amendments. Delegate Hornberger.
HB 730, Education, Public Middle Schools and Instructive Program on Collateral Consequences of Criminal Conviction. As amended, this bill requires that MSDE develop an instructive program on the collateral consequences of a criminal conviction to be offered to public middle school students who, upon return from a suspension or expulsion. The amendment alters the collateral consequences of criminal conviction from a course offered in middle school to an instructive program offered to middle school students who are returning to school after a period of being disciplined. Move the amendment. Thought I read pretty good.
Any discussion? Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion on the bill is amended.
Move the bill as amended.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, so we are going to. Who would like to be a Me Too? Okay, so I'm just gonna do a roll call just so we can get all the Me Toos. Okay, are you record the Me Toos? Okay, these mics are like extra loud today. Okay, so I'm just gonna call the favorable on House Bill 730 as amended, and Me Too, if you would like to be added to the sponsors as a co-sponsor. Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, me too.
Delegate Ebersol.
Yes, me too.
Delegate Patterson.
Yes.
Delegate Buckle. Delegate Wells. Delegate Hornberger. Delegate Fair.
Yes.
Delegate Long. Delegate Young. Delegate Miller is still excused. Delegate Henson. Delegate Roberts. Delegate Grossman. Delegate Wims. Delegate Vogel. Delegate Wu. Delegate Hartman. Delegate Miracle North. Delegate Griffith. Delegate Attar. Delegate Plakovich Carr. Delegate Feldmark.
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, Me Too. Yes. He will be very happy. House Bill 730 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 760, and there are amendments. Delegate Ebersol.
Here, I was so excited about Hornberger there, I just couldn't help it for a second. Okay, 760. As amended, this bill requires a local school system for which the Office of Legislative Audits has found repeat findings for that office, identify a corrective action, address the repeat findings in a 3-year, in year 3 of the 6-year audit cycle, and report to the Joint Audit and Evaluation Committees of the General Assembly. So the amendments alter the process by which school systems must address repeat findings unveiled by audits, shifting the time at which the findings must be addressed from their annual audits to a report made at a specific time in the Joint Audit Evaluation Committee. Move the amendment.
Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion on the bill is amended.
Move favorable.
Any discussion on the bill as amended? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 760 as amended signify by saying aye. Any opposed? House Bill 760 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 903, yes, Delegate Hornberger.
Yeah, Me Too on that bill.
Delegate Hornberger is a Me Too. Would anyone else like to be a Me Too? Okay.
It's a good bill. Thank you.
House Bill 903, and there are amendments. Delegate Ebersol. Oh, I'm sorry. Delegate Plakovich Carr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As amended, the bill creates the Access to Attorneys, Advocates, and Consultants for Special Education Program. The program is designed to aid students with disabilities who are from houses with household income at or below 150% of the Maryland Legal Services Corporation income guidelines and whose parents have made at least one attempt to resolve a disagreement about the student's special education services. The Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service will administer the program, keeping a list of attorneys, advocates, and consultants who are trained to participate in the program and are able to advocate on behalf of students with disabilities during a special education procedure. Information about the program must be shared with parents during individualized education program meetings. The bill also creates a dedicated fund to provide funding to attorneys, advocates, and consultants to represent the interests of students with disabilities and their parents. So the amendments limit when certain information about students with disabilities is reported to instances in which there is a dispute, define the term advocate, and require that the Maryland Volunteer Lawyers Service develop training criteria for attorneys, advocates, and consultants that must be taken prior to participating in the program. Move the amendments.
Any discussion on the amendments? Okay, all in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the amendments pass. Motion on the bill is amended. Any discussion? I was gonna say Delegate Wu, you were absent. So would you like to be a me too? This is the one, instead of the burden of proof, Delegate Hester is the cross file. You want to be a me too? Delegate Mirka North? I think pretty much everybody but the two of them were on it, but yeah. Okay, so all in favor of 903 as amended signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, yeah. Yes. You're on it, Wells. Hornberger's on it. Yes, I was trying to catch everybody that day. Okay, House Bill 903 passes favorably as amended. House Bill 1164, Delegate Ebersol.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill prohibits non-public elementary and secondary schools that participate in state-funded education programs from refusing to provide a student transcript or providing a less favorable treatment of a transcript request because the student owes the school a debt. Move the bill favorable.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of House Bill 1164 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? House Bill 1164 passes favorably. House Bill 1192, Delegate Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill exempts an applicant for a video lottery employee license from automatic disqualification for a crime involving moral turpitude that is a non-violent misdemeanor offense other than a crime involving gambling if one, the applicant will not be employed in the operation of a gaming or security, and two, the video lottery operation licensee requests that the State Lottery and Gaming Commission issue the license. Move favorable.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of House Bill 1192 signify by saying aye. Any opposed? House Bill 1192 passes as favorable. We have 3 withdraws. House Bill that we need to vote on, House Bill 48, House Bill 818, and House Bill 1246 have been withdrawn by the sponsor. Is there a consent motion?
Hold on.
Madam Vice Chair?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I
Move unfavorable as a consent calendar, the withdrawn bills.
Second.
You can. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, those bills have officially been withdrawn. Thank you very much. We are going to meet again to vote on Thursday. Subcommittee chairs and Buckle, I need you in the back.